Hello Net JRF Economics aspirants. This is our MCQ practice set 1, and for more practice set you can join our Google Classroom because more practice set will not be available publicly. More practice sets will be available for Google Classroom members only. So let us try to solve this practice set. So first I have put my email address. Now I will solve the question one by one. The first question is marginal revenue of a monopoly firm is less than price because demand curve of a monopoly is negative slope, because this is true in all conditions. So you have not to confuse about this because the demand curve of monopolies all has always a negative slope. Let us try to discuss this somewhat in detail. And this is the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve for a monopolist. And as you can see, the demand curve of a monopolist always downward sloping because you know that the demand curve of a perfectly competitive farm is a straight line, because he cannot charge higher or lower price, because if he charges higher price then he will not be able to sell his any of his commodity, because there are other farms who are available to sell at a lower price. But in monopolies this is not the case. Monopolist chain can charge a higher price because he is the only seller in the market, but he has a limitation. The limitation is the elasticity of demand. For example, if monopoly charges this much price, he will be able to sell this much quantity. This much quantity he can sell. If he charges lower price, then he can uh, sell this much quantity. Or vice versa, like if he want to sell this much quantity, he has to charge a this much price. So this is the condition of monopoly. A monopolist can either decide demand or price, but in a perfect competition firm can neither decide quantity or neither can decide quantity, but they cannot decide the price, because uh, price is already given to them and they all have to sell on that given price. So you have to always memorize this. For a monopolist, the demand curve is always negatively sloping, and for a perfectly competitive market, the demand curve is a horizontal line. Let us come to our second question. It is for an inferior good, income consumption curve and Ansel curves are. First of all, let us see what is income consumption curve and what is Ansel curve. As you can see in this picture, what this picture shows is the income consumption curve. The income consumption curve is the lowest point of all the equilibrium point of indifference curve and budget curve. You can see this is the budget curve and this is the indifference curve, and here is the equilibrium. And similar, as the income increases, the budget line shifts and equilibrium is here. Further income increases and budget line shifts and equilibrium is here. And when you join these all equilibrium points, you find income consumption curve. So for an inferior good, this will not be the case, as you can see here, because here you can see as the income increases, the consumer is consuming more of both of goods. Like firstly, it was here, it was consuming more than somewhat more than and less than 4, but after income increases, it is consuming 5, and further income increases, it is consuming 7. But if quantity Y is, QY is an inferior good, then if income increases, he will not consume more of that commodity. He will consume less of that commodity. So the equilibrium point in the next time will not be this one. The equilibrium point will be lower than this line. That means the indifference curve in the second case will, if income increases, will come here, and if income further increases, the indifference curve will be here. It is the case of when the QY is inferior good, because for inferior good, when income increases, the quantity consumed decreases. So when you join this point to find your income consumption curve, you can find that this is a negatively sloping curve. You can do it well in your copy. So you can say that income consumption curve for an inferior good is negatively sloped. Now let us come to the Angel curve. Angel curve is what? Angel curve is simply the relationship between money income and the quantity consumed of the commodity. And you know, for an inferior good, when income increases, quantity consumed decreases. It means the Angel curve for that commodity will be negatively sloped, because for example, if suppose that if initial consumption is here, then if income will increase, the quantity consumed will decrease and the consumer will consume this much. It is less than this much. So this is the case of inferior good. Now you can say that for an inferior good, both Angel curves and the income consumption curve are negatively sloped. So our correct answer should be this one. Now let us come to the question number 3. The question is, the classical economist focused on the role of money. Yes, this is a simple question, because the classical economist focused on money only as a medium of exchange, because they didn't analyze the medium of distribution of income, or it is the some kind of wealth, or there is a link between future value and the present value of money. They didn't go in depth. They simply regarded the money as the medium of exchange. But later, as you know, many development happen and people come to know that their money has many roles. Now let us come to next question. It is the question number 4. If the demand curve for a money is perfectly interest inelastic, the LM schedule will be. The answer will be the vertical line, but let us try to understand this, why it is so. Suppose this is a two-dimensional graph, and here is the interest and here is the income. So here perfectly interest inelastic means demand for money will not be affected by interest. And if demand for money is not affected by interest, it means the ILM curve will be a vertical line, because whatever is the interest rate, the demand for money is not affected, and so the LM curve doesn't changes its position. So this is why the LM curve will be vertical line for a perfectly interest inelastic condition, because LM curve is affected when demand for money is affected. Due to demand for money is interest inelastic, the LM curve will be a vertical line. We will see these things in detail in the chapter wise lectures. So for now, you just remember that for an interest inelastic demand for money, the LM curve will be a vertical line. Now come to the question number 5. Here the question is, Harrod-Domar model of economic growth is based on the equilibrium between. Simply remember this is the equilibrium between saving and investment. The whole theory start with the equilibrium between saving and investment. So here I will not go in detail. The detailed lecture will be available in the classroom. Now let us come to the next question. In calculating the buoyancy of taxes, we consider ordinary discretionary changes or only automatic changes. And first of all, the buoyancy of taxes is what? When the increase in the tax is more than the increase in GDP, especially percentage increase in tax is the more than increase in GDP. For example, if GDP increases by at 10 percentage and the tax collected increases by more than 10 percentage, then we can say that there is a buoyancy of taxes. So when calculating the buoyancy of taxes, we include all discretionary changes, that is what a government intentionally take to change the tax revenue, and the automatic changes which happen due to the increase in output and increase in economic activity. So our answer is both A and B. Question number 7 is a very easy question. You know that the mean is affected by extreme values, but the median is not affected by the extreme values. So if this is, suppose this is the data set, then the arithmetic may be affected by the extreme value. If extreme value is larger, then it can be far from the middle of the data. But the medium is what? Medium is in the middle of the data, and it is not affected by the extreme values. Whatever is the value is in the extreme, medium is not affected by them, because it is simply the middle value of the data set. So when your objective is to assess the distribution of the values, median is best because it is not affected by the extreme values. Question number 8 is very easy. Comparative cost advantage in Ricardo's international theory arises due to labor cost differences, because Ricardo said that international trade occurs due to the differences in cost of labor. That is, some countries may have cheaper labor than other. But here I will not explain the theory in detail because we will have a separate lecture on this. Let us come to the second ninth question. Everyone know the answer is Bihar, because in Bihar most of people are, highest number of people are below poverty line. And the question number 10, many people make mistake. They simply click a rural telephony, but it is not the correct answer. The correct answer is the agro-based industries, because Bharat Nirman is a rural development program. It was launched in UPA government regime, and now it is not so popular, and it is mixture of 6 component. But here agro-based industry is not one of them. It is a rural housing, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, rural electrification. There are many schemes for electrification and sichai, irrigation, and so on. But agro-based industry is not one of them. First, you have to remember that agro-based industry is not the part of Bharat Nirman.